Hey Rachel,
Hey Ryan.
how are you?
Good.
So this is the YumYumPodcast. This is our show Yum Yum Trek, a show in which we, Ryan and Rachel, I'm obviously Ryan.
And I am Rachel.
What?
Yeah.
You're not the Yum Yum and the Yum Yum Trek and the Yum Yum Podcast?
I can only aspire to be Yum Yum.
You're pretty Yum Yum to me.
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
Oh, no problem. So we are doing a show in which we talk about Star Trek Discovery. Well, we talk about TV, but at the moment we are starting off with Star Trek Discovery, a show that we have both seen before.
Mm-hmm.
We watched it when it initially aired. We have very mixed feelings upon it, and a rewatch
Is in order to see if those feelings still stand or if they're changed, made better maybe. That's what we're hoping for.
highlight some issues or downplay those issues, rediscover things that were in the narrative that were either forgotten by the show and plot itself or forgotten by us as viewers. Of course, this being a rewatch means we're going to be talking spoilers about Star Trek Discovery.
But not just Star Trek Discovery.
Star Trek of the past as well. So yeah, the episode, what one are we doing?
Context is for kings.
So season 1, episode 3.
Yes, which just so happens to be the next one in chronological order.
Yeah, we're
After
going in
our last
chronological.
episode.
What?
Yeah, for this one at least.
Oh.
So, would you like to hear the synopsis?
I am on the edge of my seat.
Okay. Burnham finds herself aboard the USS Discovery, where she quickly realizes things are not as they seem, including the mysterious Captain Gabriel Lorca.
That's technically true. I mean, most of it's true. It's a very simple description. I don't know if she learned that Lorca isn't what he seems. He seems pretty much what he is straight off the bat, which is dark captain who wants to do things to end the war no matter the cost. I don't think she really learned that he wasn't that in this episode.
No.
I think maybe she learned about the fact that she got it wrong of why she assumed he brought her on board. Is that it? I think that might be what they mean.
Yeah, because she just thought that it was...
For weapons.
Well, she originally just thought that it was a weird mistake.
Oh, yeah. She's very, very...
She was suspicious of it because it's just like, oh, this seems a bit dodgy.
I'm not here by accident. I think you brought me here. I think you've been testing me.
And why would I do that?
You're developing some kind of experimental technology. Some kind of spore-based biological weapon.
Just to remind people, we're the Yum Yum podcast because this show, Discovery, introduced the greatest line of dialogue ever put to any form of media, Yum Yum. Just really want to highlight that in because... Rachel, we're all trying to be positive here at the end. We're going to rate this episode a yum, meaning yum or yum yum, yum being bad, yum yum being good. So let's give our initial thoughts and what we recollected upon our initial watch. I remembered liking this episode on my initial watch.
We will rate it at the end.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what the IMDb rating is?
7.2.
7.6, which
Oh,
makes
my
it...
Lord.
The highest rated episode
that we've
by
done
far.
That we've done so far, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. I remember when we initially watched this on the watching of the show that I enjoyed this episode. I thought at the time it had some interesting sci-fi horror intrigue, investigating what's happening on the ship, showing our new crew in a not so usual convention, introducing our characters that I liked from the beginning. I liked Tilly, I liked Stamets. I found Lorca, of course, interesting, maybe not because of his actual character, but because of Jason Isaacs as the performer. I remembered enjoying the episode the first time round. Upon a rewatch, knowing where things go and noticing
go as well.
We're noticing where things do and do not go, and noticing the writing prevalently this time round. I did not like this episode very much. There were things in here, but thinking of the stuff I praised in the previous 2 episodes, which again, I don't think are the best things of television, it seems like they don't have those things that I praised before in here. There is no debates or conversations that are very Star Trek-y. It feels like any other kind of sci-fi war-related show, and that is fine.
I can understand that. I didn't mind it. I enjoyed the way that it's just plodding along, but I think one major reason why I didn't hate it as much is because the camera is still still.
Well,
Like
was
compared to where we go.
Yes. There was lots of quick cuts, though.
There was lots of quick cuts, but it wasn't every time we're in a room that the camera is spinning around people as they're talking.
True.
It was just like with the conversation between Michael and Saru out the front of engineering. It's like just pretty much a static shot, reverse shot, and a wide.
Isn't it sad that your positive is that?
Yeah, it is. It really, really is.
That's really sad. And yeah, you like that? Okay.
But that's just one. That's just one.
So one of my immediate problems with this episode upon the rewatch that factors into how the story unfolds is I have an issue with the lead character of Michael Burnham. And I remember upon the initial watch, I didn't know when exactly or what exactly made me fall off the radar with Michael, other than the obvious Spock connection was something that weighed the character down. But
which
on this...
is established in this episode.
It's re-established, it's reinforced.
But also... You've already declared the death of Michael Burnham.
Well, I meant that in terms of the death of my complete investment in the character as an individual, because the show puts a character on Michael by having her be a relation to a pre-established, character that we've never heard about. But in this particular episode, on this rewatch, I noticed straight off the bat that I already upon this rewatch didn't like Michael.
Made that clear already, yes.
And I think it's because of the characterization. I don't know what the direction was, if it was the showrunners, the acting, the writers, but the character is more emotionless in this when she's... than in comparison to when she's been a Vulcan. And I understand the logic to the madness there. But in this episode, she's intrigued. She's supposed to be intrigued. She's supposed to be in awe. She's supposed to be suspicious. She's supposed to be doing the deducing and the figuring out of what's really going on here. And she's supposed to be curious and supposed to be all these things. But the acting has her just be...
Alice.
She's just blank-faced
Yeah.
and monotoned and disinterested. And I think the character's supposed to be severely interested in what's going on, but it's played as if she's got complete apathy for the situation. And I just found it immediately unlikable and unengaging, and I just couldn't get into her character this episode. And I know that this is going to be how it is primarily for a lot of the episodes to come and the rest of the season or series. And it was interesting to me because I try to remember back what it is or when it was that Michael started to fall off as a character I like, and upon this rewatch, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
I preferred her in the last episode. I didn't even like her in that episode. This episode, she was just, I am Michael Burnham, and I am here to say lines of dialogue that are very pretentious. I'm going to quote Alice in Wonderland because I'm pretentious and stiff and boring, and I don't even think it's the actress's fault. She's clearly a very talented actress. I just don't know. I think they cranked it too far in one direction. I think they needed to lessen this harsh, cold exterior, because I think a lot of people mistake Spock as being this cold, harsh exterior, but the magic of Leonard Nimoy's performance is
That
what makes that
underneath.
character. He
Yeah,
adds so much likability to it.
Are you all right?
Yes, I believe no permanent damage was done.
What happened?
The occipital area of my head seems to have impacted with the arm of the chair.
No, Mr. Spock.
I think the whole Alice allegory needs a whole discussion of its own.
I have it in my notes as the thing to discuss on its own.
Oh yeah, it's a whole thing that they try
I forgot
and
that they
hammer
established it
home.
this early on, though, because I remember it being prevalent in season 2, and
Yeah.
I forgot that it was even established. So that's my fault, I guess, and or the show, maybe. I don't know.
They
we'll
had
see.
more of a continuation of an idea than we'd previously given credit for.
Yes,
That
but
doesn't
we'll
make
see.
the idea good, but it's
yes.
something that we didn't give it credit for before.
And or, Rachel, to give ourselves some credit, maybe upon this rewatch we will note how that idea slips away and then they bring it back again to a
Yeah.
point in which it's like, oh yeah.
It snuffs out and then they bring back the embers. Who knows? The other thing, I agree that they don't land well with her character. I was thinking about it and I'm like, I feel like they wanted to go for plucky and they overshot it to just a little bit too arrogant.
Really, I felt that they were playing it like she's defeated. Like, she wants to go back to prison. She wants to serve her time.
Oh, yeah.
She's wholly defeated. And I think she keeps playing it for this episode, at least, as that, even though the script and the mechanics of what's happening shouldn't be that for the whole journey, but every character's
Yeah,
shitting on her, so
she's-
I get why she wants to act that way, but it's not an engaging performance for the whole show, for this whole episode.
I
It kind of
feel
gets to a
like
tedium.
She's very distinct between when she's on her own and when she's with others. Because I feel like she's kind of plucky and having fun when she's on her own. Like when she's in the Jeffries tube reciting Alice in Wonderland to herself. That's one thing, and that's her like being cute and enjoying herself and exploring the curiosity. I guess is the point of that.
Yeah, you're going real far at this. I thought that was just pretentious. That was writers being writers. That was, we can just have lines of Alice in Wonderland curate this scene. Because they think it would be too boring that if she just did what a normal person would do, which is very quickly run through a tube and jump out, and that would be it.
Yeah,
but they need noise on the screen.
And it makes a superhero landing in the in the shuttle.
There was so much wacky bullshit in this episode, and yet
It's not campy fun like TOS. Like that seemed.
There
I
was
wonder if
some...
that's what they were going for, and it didn't quite hit. But yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like they wanted to show that she's like plucky, curious science officer.
Yeah.
But that she's like truly regretful and
Yeah.
mourning the death of her captain and all of the people that she killed, and she knows the exact number. Because, if she knows the exact number, that means she's sad, and it's upsetting, and it's disturbing, and she ruminates over every single one of those lives.
My cousin was on the Europa when it went down. She and 8,000 others are dead because of you. 8,186.
But that could be played for genuine, interesting drama.
It
But
really
instead, it's
could
just
be.
played with that expression she has on her face in the opening of this episode is the expression on her face
Yeah,
for everything you just stated. There
that's
is
just her
no,
face.
and I don't mean just
No.
that in a literal sense. That expression on her face is kind of the embodiment of the emotional range that they make this character and her, through her performance and through other means, go through with all that stuff you
And
just said, which could be
note-
complex and interesting if it was played that way more.
And note, when we see her eyes, it looks like she was just crying.
Well, isn't that her always? She got
Yeah.
she's got her
I think-
Michael hair now.
Yeah, she does.
Well,
Which I remember we discussed when we first watched this episode, because we were concerned that it was going down the trope of curly-haired bitches be crazy.
but then they introduced Tilly, and then, she's a curly-haired girl, and she
Yeah.
ain't no crazy bitch. She's just an awkward bitch. Nah, I'm kidding. Well, she is a bitch in this episode, which in retrospect feels really uncharacteristic. I mean, I get the reasoning why.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Tilly and all that stuff
We'll
in a
get
little
to
bit,
Tilly.
but
But there is something that I thought of from the first scene, which is where we get introduced to her wild hair, which is, why does she still get to wear a Star Trek badge?
Well, she's in a special uniform as well, so the others aren't. She's in a special one.
Yeah, but why? Why is she?
Because she's the first mutineer. Don't think about it.
That's Michael Burnham, the mutineer in the flesh.
She's a Starfleet.
She's the first mutineer. Don't think about it. She's Michael Burnham.
That's Michael Burnham, the mutineer in the flesh.
Yeah.
The only female Michael I know is Michael Burnham. She's the
But,
first mutineer. Don't think about it. Somebody dies in that
yeah.
scene, and they don't give it a second thought. By the way,
they just float by the window.
Did Discovery not want to save that person, or what?
No. They don't care at all.
It's never mentioned. There's a literal Starfleet officer in a time in which we need all Starfleet personnel that fucking dies at the beginning, and again, is treated like how it was in the previous episode, with no attention at all. At least in the previous one, it was done in a more brutal fashion. This one, it was just kind of like, oh, they died.
And it makes no difference at all. Because it could have just been nothing, and like they just get saved by Discovery because their ship is being eaten and they're about to be deserted.
They didn't even need to do that. They just could have just had it that they were there and then the Discovery picked them up anyway. Why was it like that? Because they had to
also-
introduce the little spore creature things.
Yeah, which don't even impact later, because then the shuttle gets to go through the storm and through those things apparently. And did Lorca send the bugs?
No, I think they were testing the bug things, and they were out and about in the area that they were, because he was saying like, we've been testing in this area how far we can jump.
Yeah, but
I think
but those bugs are different than the spores, because Michael knows exactly what they are.
Oh. Who knows? Who cares? Don't think about it. She's the first mutineer. Don't think about it, okay? She's a xenoanthropologist, Rachel. Don't think about it. Stamets is in this episode. Look at him. He's in it. Don't think about the fact of that.
No.
Before we trail off, there's a few things we need to talk about that are just aesthetic things.
Yes.
We need to talk about the Discovery ship and what we think about it aesthetically from the exterior and interior, and what we think about... we've already talked about Michael's hair.
Yeah.
I preferred Michael's hair previously. And I think it's
which-
because I know that her hair gets more absurd as the show goes on. She looks like a Futurama character by the second season, I swear. She looks like she has like Philip J. Fry's hair by the second season, I swear to you, but curly.
Yeah, it does. It does go weird. It is.
She has Tintin hair by the second season.
Oh, yeah, it is really weird. And it's also just like, I wish they did better by her hair, because it would be really cool if, but like, because like in the first two episodes, it's very much like it goes, like she's straightening her hair. And later on, including in this episode, she's embracing more of the natural texture of her hair.
Because she's been in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, she
She
doesn't,
can't
doesn't
even get good blueberries.
Yeah.
It's because of the environment, not the
Not
the replicator.
With the food synthesizer. Doesn't even call it a replicator.
Yeah.
That would be too Star Trek, Ryan.
Don't think about it. The Discovery ship is fine. I don't have any issues
there's
with it.
one-
At least it's
One thing about the exterior that I don't like.
Is it the spinning disc?
No, not even that. Wasn't even paying attention to that. it's not typical for them to have their name on them too.
No, the NCC.
They have the NCC, but this has like even bigger the USS Discovery.
Well, they even have it on the pillows, Rachel.
Yeah, like everything is monogrammed.
For the big secret ship that no one's supposed to know about, it is good that they label. It's like the Batcave. They label everything with it. It is.
Yeah, they really do. Like when we got like the big exterior shot when it was like panning up, I'm like, why does it have its name in massive letters on it? It's just like. It's like that kid that gets their first job and is so excited to have a name tag.
I like the exterior enough. I like that it's got simple like shapes, the typical disc, the midsections like
it's a fairly sleek design.
A triangular kind of thing going on. It's a very sleek design. Yeah, it's got a bunch of shiny lights all over it that are annoying to look at. And I wish sometimes, like I know they're going for a realistic-y
matte effect.
I do wish sometimes that we got it nicely lit. I know they're going for the natural, it's in space, but I miss the days in which when we saw the USS Enterprise or Voyager or whatever, and it's just like lit, like, oh look, you can see this, like, I get it. It's a modern show. That's fine. That's just me sometimes just wanting to appreciate the full effect instead of it just being like, oh, I can see it underneath the dark.
Yeah, and it's part of that overall aesthetic. So it flows better because it would be weird if the exteriors were brightly lit because it seems like they only, like they're in power saving mode constantly. With the lights.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the interiors. I think it's hard because we've got lens flares everywhere, and I find it irritating that it's a science ship, so I don't mind that it has this clinical look about it. The fluorescent lighting and all of that stuff is nice.
And it's brand new. But so that makes sense. Like it doesn't feel lived in because it's a science.
Well, how did we know it was brand new, Rachel? How did we know that? Did a random convict character that they did not establish as anyone who has any knowledge of any Starfleet things say, it's a brand new ship, look, it doesn't have any scratches or nothing? Did that happen? And that character meant nothing to the plot and we wasted 5 to 10 minutes with those 3 characters and they meant nothing?
Yeah, that did happen.
Not a scratch on the floor. This puppy just rolled off the assembly line.
What's a brand new Starship doing so far from the front lines?
So something that bugged me that was just a line. This is truly a nitpick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the idea is that it's a science vessel.
Is it a science vessel?
I think it might be a science vessel.
What's with all the silver shirts?
It's a science vessel.
So this is a science vessel.
So Saru says that there's enough resources on Discovery for 300 distinct science projects.
Missions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not that hard.
But Rachel, it's a new ship. It's a science vessel. Don't think about it.
Okay.
She's the first mutineer.
Even Starfleet's first mutineer.
This puppy just rolled off the assembly line.
Science vessel.
My friend Rose, right?
Who is into science.
Who's into science. She works at a frog lab.
At a university.
Yes, but it's the frog lab.
Uh-huh.
And that's just one part of the university, and they can have up to 20 projects going in that one tiny lab.
But Rachel...
This is a whole fucking starship. Why is it impressive?
We're assuming
and
that...
only happening now that they can do 300 different things on one ship.
I'll give it this. Now, we haven't been told the exact size of the Starship Discovery. Maybe it's smaller than a university.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the size of a car. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's the size of a car. And what about every starship before that couldn't manage to have 300?
Rachel,
Are all of them Mini Coopers?
Rachel, I understand where you're coming from, but the show doesn't want this episode in
It
particular.
doesn't want you to think. It doesn't
wants
want you to
be
care.
no. It does want you to. It does want you to think in terms of listen to this piece of information we're giving you and get it in your brain. This is
We're going to tell
Stamets'
you it over and over and over again.
Tilly literally says, I have it written down. Let me get it. She literally says, my character flaw is no person on the fucking Earth, let alone in outer space, speaks like that.
Okay.
Stamets has a whole monologue that is
he
just,
does.
here's my backstory, here's what my ideology is,
And then-
blah, blah, blah. Let's tell the audience. Don't show the audience.
and then-
Don't show it with just
No.
visuals or actions of the characters.
Too smart.
Dialogue. Just damn it. Show, don't tell. No, tell. That's all this show is. Tell. The only character that comes close to showing, and this is not even correct because everyone tells us, is Lorca.
Yeah.
And
And
Lorca, we get told by every other character stuff about him.
yeah.
But when we actually get to hang out with Lorca, he is showing us more. He's showing us in comparison to other characters more than he's telling us. But
I'd prefer to serve my time without getting involved.
You think I care what your preferences are? Till your vessel's repaired, you'll be assigned to quarters and put to work. I'm not a chauffeur. There's no free rides on my ship.
Why the fuck does he know how to work the spore drive?
oh, I am.
I'm okay with him knowing how to work the spore drive and to make it like go from A to B. How did he know to get the spores to show her those pretty little pictures?
I have an answer to that, and
Is
you're
it
not
that I
gonna
shouldn't
like
care?
it. Okay, so again, we are talking spoilers. This episode in a rewatch does do obvious in retrospect foreshadowing of what Lorca's
agree,
whole thing
and
is,
it's
and I
done fairly
think the
well.
logic is Lorca, we know, is going to use this technology to go back to his universe. So, and what we know about his character, and again, okay, just here's the thing. I know a lot of people don't like Lorca, but here's just a simple thing. We know that he's hands-on with every single project. He is intensely involved with everything. At the very end of the episode, we find out he has a secret laboratory. So I think that in itself kind of gives us an idea. But just one visual thing. His ready room has no furniture, just a desk that stands.
You don't
and
get
that
to be comfortable.
And that in itself tells you everything you need to know about his character. Like, I mean it. It tells you that he is rigid and firm, and I think he would know as much as he could humanly possibly know about the sports technology, especially knowing what we know now, which is he is going to use this because later in the series he knows how
Of
to
knowing how to make it show you pretty pictures.
No. That's a stepping stone. Because in this part of the show, they're still learning how to do these things. So that's just a learning thing. Like, oh, first we can show you images of other places. Then we'll be able to physically transport you to other places. I don't mind that as much, but that's the end, Rachel.
I accept.
Okay, since we were talking about when they first got onto the ship, Michael, we are introduced to a forgotten plotline immediately off the bat, which is the Black Badges, aka Section 31, as we find out in Season 2. That never comes up again in my knowledge. Maybe upon this rewatch, and maybe people could tell us, but as immediately as I saw it, I just remember going, oh, that never amounts to anything
the badge
ever.
establishes that there are Section 31 officers that are working and are part of the crew of Discovery, which makes sense because it is a secret mission. It's a secret ship with a secret mission with a secret objective.
I will say I will disagree with you on a few points, but I see the logic there. Now again, the rewatch may make this come to fruition. The second season is particularly hard to remember finite details, but in my memory, it's being okay, first off, who's this for? I ask, because Section 31 is a very specific minor point of reference in the Star Trek canon that only Star Trek fans know, but
the people in the show don't know that that's a
people don't know in the show, but
Section 31
people who are new to the series they won't get to find out what that small moment was until next season, and then it doesn't even refer to it in the same manner. But what I will disagree is, in my memory, and now I could be wrong, I don't remember Section 31 being fully aware of Discovery's capabilities when they rock up. And Section 31 would, no doubt, would just leave that known technology with just the Discovery ship. They would, as soon as it got figured out, they would have transplanted it to every other ship because they're Section 31, or they would have kept that technology. But by the end of the show, it's kind of like that lost piece of technology that we'll never see again because it's classified. Don't talk about it.
Yeah, it was just on the Discovery and just on the Glen.
And that got boomed. But don't worry, it's just a ship.
It only exists for them to get the tardigrade, doesn't it?
So
That's the only reason it exists, right?
Yeah. What is going... No, there's also... Stamets had a friend on there.
Yeah, so Stamets isn't a complete and utter genius who has done this entirely on his own.
No, he had a friend. Possibly former lover. But we are bragging on this episode quite a lot. I feel conflicted because I don't like this episode on this rewatch, but there were great moments of writing, but I feel like the episode took a very long time to get to those because we are taken from being on the ship to then Michael being taken to the cafeteria, canteen, mess hall area for no reason. They say, "Oh, we have to feed you" or whatever, but in the logic of the show,
the animals.
in the logic of the show,
That's
with what
that's what she says.
Yes, because Landry's a bitch, and remember that great character?
Yeah, remember how we really care about her and
Don't worry, she's evil in no matter what universe. But what I was going to say is, the scene is perfunctory. It's only there to serve a purpose. So, in the normal logic, Michael is taken aboard the Discovery. Lorca wants to see her. Why is it done? She's taken aboard Discovery, gets a whole tour of Discovery, then is taken to the mess hall, and then is taken to Lorca. It's so convoluted because they have to...
They have to show that Michael knows how to fight.
They have to stack all these silly things, but the real importance of the cafeteria scene is to let you know that previous crew members are on this ship. Now, Rachel, what would have been more impactful to you? Seeing a random redhead lady with some cybernetic parts on her head that we didn't know as a character from the previous 2 episodes. Like, she was there, but we didn't know her as a character.
No.
We don't know anything about her as a character.
No.
Seeing her reacting like, ooh, Michael, and that's the first person we know, or Saru. Which one would have been more emotional? Which one would have made more impact? Not only to you as a viewer, but to the character of Michael, as the revelation that previous crew members are on this ship.
That's a rhetorical question because it's so obviously Saru.
Oh, no, it can't be rhetorical questions because the writers don't think so. They think it's the other answer.
No,
so I guess it's a multiple
it's
choice.
It's a rhetorical question to you because it is so obvious. And the writers just went, we'll build up to Saru.
I think...
Why?
I think there is a...
Why not?
I can think of a reason. But they didn't do it. Because Michael's stoic.
Yeah.
She sees a crew member that was just a minor person to her. Like, just a minor person to us, the audience, and possibly to her. She was that person's number one.
Yeah.
We see this person, they're deformed because of her. That would have been great if that set off...
The actress just got an excuse to get a side cut.
No. It would have been great if it set off an anxiety in Michael of who else is on this ship, because she already has... There's already this thing...
Keeping an eye out for
there's
everybody.
already this atmosphere of people on the ship know who she is and they don't like her, but now she knows... My lord, there are people that I know from my own ship, people that I now see I physically have deformed, or at least I'm partly responsible for this. That would have been great, and the anxiety could have built up, but instead she just reacts like, oh, it's you, and then the woman walks away, and then she goes, I'll get into a fight scene now. So, because the show has to have action.
And it doesn't...
That's the only logic I can determine to why you would have structured it like that, and they didn't even do it.
Doesn't make sense that guy just goes, okay, well, I'm just going to see if I can kill you. But
Rachel,
he
he's
says
a convict.
He says it like, oh, I'm going to make you kill me.
He's evil. That's the reason. Don't think about it. She's the first mutineer.
That's Michael Burnham.
The mutineer.
In the flesh.
Even Starfleet's first mutineer.
The only other female Michael I ever heard of was Michael Burnham, the mutineer.
The mutineer?
Mutineers don't get phasers.
Enter me. A mutineer. Before I was a mutineer, I was a first officer in Starfleet.
What did you think of the bridge? Because we didn't talk about that, and that's where they go next, is the bridge. I don't like the bridge. I don't think it even matches...
No.
I don't even think it matches the rest of the ship,
It
because
doesn't feel right.
I will say this. Again, I keep saying the phrase, I will say this, because I want to defend some aspects, but this doesn't even line up with where the second season goes.
Yeah.
The bridge is dimly lit.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because Lorca has sensitive eyes.
Yes.
Why is it still like that in the second season?
It looks cool.
Because it's the aesthetic choice, but it doesn't
Yeah,
even
like-
match the rest of the bridge. What I like about the
Right.
bridges in the previous shows is you get a sense of the atmosphere, the geography. When you see the bridge of that 1960s set, yes, it's campy and janky from today's standards, but I understand who's sitting where, what station does what. It's small but comfortable. You've got bright colors. You got it all.
It feels like everything there is performing a function. There's lots of negative space in the bridges in Discovery. Like, is the captain's chair, and then a wide bridge, and then the stations, and then the helm, and then the computers at the back. There is so much space.
Yeah, and we've seen spacious bridges before with Voyager has a pretty spacious bridge, and obviously Next Generation has a spacious bridge, but the thing is,
Not like this.
not like this.
Because those two bridges have the thing where it's like the back is higher.
Yeah.
So, but this just has like double the width back.
It's just a giant oval,
yeah.
which makes sense because of it's in the center of the disc, but here's a weakness of the bridge design, because of the lighting, because of how big it is. When I think of each given show, in my brain, I can give a virtual tour of those bridges. Like, I can just walk in my brain to what is where. I can not do that with the bridge in Star Trek Discovery. I don't know where things are because it's dimly lit, and we never, including in this episode where you get introduced to the bridge, you don't see it very much. We get to meet the robot lady.
Yeah.
Remember that? She's an important character, guys. She's very important.
What's her name?
Arium.
Oh.
I know. She speaks. She doesn't go beep boop like the last robot.
No.
We meet Lorca in the next scene,
Yes.
and what did you think of him upon this rewatch and this introduction to him, knowing what his character is?
I still stand by my original thought that it's cool but also lazy that they made him Southern. Because
We know damn well he's British.
yes, we do know that, but you know, he's a wartime military person, so you know, Southern. That makes sense.
Other than him being Southern, what do you think upon this watching of him as a character? We know what he is.
Mm-hmm.
There are some foreshadowing things that are a little on the nose in
Yeah.
retrospect, but not terrible. I've seen worse foreshadowing. Like the
Yeah.
previous episodes where it's like, Michael, I trust you with my life. Oh,
Yeah.
Giorgio, I love you in your life.
But
You're not going to die.
It sets up pretty nicely. I don't like the fortune cookie thing much. Like, I don't know. Like, it just it sticks out too much. Like, oh, right, I had an idea.
It does. I will give it some credit to see how it will go with his character later, because there are some things I remember about his character, but I can't fully.
But Michael accepts his fortune cookie,
At the
accepting
end.
her new destiny.
At the end, though.
Yes.
She didn't want any at the beginning.
No, but she doesn't actually read her fortune.
No, we don't get to find it out.
Yeah, but he's the one that's written it. That's the whole thing. The smart one I want to be.
What's in your future? What do you wish for? Atonement? Redemption? Maybe the assurance that the captain you lost didn't die in vain. You helped start a war. Don't you want to help me end it?
I don't know how I feel about how they introduce him, because you immediately know he's evil. Like, I remember from the very get-go, I was like, oh, but I found that kind of cheesy and charmingly cheesy. But upon this episode's rewatch, I wonder if it would have been more fascinating to see his evil streak at the very end when we find out the guy who's this sweet-talking, charming captain man has a secret evil Nazi laboratory in his spaceship.
If we didn't... Oh, you mean just at the end of the episode?
At the end, wouldn't that have been a real, like, ooh, I would have... I'm wondering if I would have preferred if he was more like, if he was a better actor. A better, like, not the actor himself, but the character as a better actor of... If he was coming across at first like he was a Captain Picard or a Captain Kirk, if he was one of those things, but he's immediately an obvious allegory for modern American stuff, and I get that, and he's like got the evil.
We see everybody saying that he's a warmonger. He's this, he's that, and we don't see any of that, and then it's just like maybe the scene with Landry. And then it like is the same, and then we go into Here Kitty.
No, we do get sense that he's very, very evil, not just because of his darkly ominous room, but his very weird dialogue. But then you get a moment in the midsection when he sends them on the mission where he's like, "This isn't a democracy. I'm in charge," and you're like, "Okay, he's evil." I think it would have been more, maybe just for this episode.
But he's right.
At first, he comes.
A captain isn't an elected leader. You are meant to follow orders.
In doing so, you disobeyed my direct orders.
Yes, ma'am.
You violated the protocols that govern this crew.
Yes, ma'am.
You nearly caused an armed conflict with the Manayans, and frankly, you're lucky to be standing here right now. I would have destroyed your shuttle if necessary.
What did you think about Tilly, though, as a character in this rewatching? Because I like Tilly overall as a character, even still now, and I think that they do some terrible things with her plot-wise later on, but I think that she's a cool character, or at least I like, I don't know, I like the actress, and I can't tell if it's the actress or the character, because the writing for her character was fucking terrible in this episode. Lots of us being told who she is. Well, I think, again, like I said in the previous episodes, the actors are doing a good enough job showing us who these people are.
Not many people know this, but one day I'm going to be a captain.
My character flaw.
Yeah. I do like Tilly. She was more shrill in that first scene than I remembered.
Her babbling.
Yeah.
About her bed.
Yeah. Like, no, just before. Yeah.
Well, that's when we first get introduced to her.
Yeah, when she's
scene.
just like.
That's my bed.
Like, just before she admits that, like, that's what she's being weird about. Because I remember blocking my ears when we watched it for the first time because I was so unprepared for this woman to walk in and be like.
She's often compared to, she's a modern day female version of Reg Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's kind of hard to say because my nostalgia and my blind, but I prefer Reg as a character. But also, Reg is not a main character; he is a minor character who's appeared in a total of probably like 12 episodes over 2 different shows. Yeah, but she's fine. I found her okay in this episode. I thought she was. Although her writing wasn't very great, her character writing, like her actions, made sense to me. Even when she was a little bit bitchy in that scene in the lab or the engineering room.
Yeah.
It made sense, and I like that.
And she tells us exactly why.
And that was probably my favorite scene because it was two characters having a genuine conversation that felt real, at least in this episode.
Yeah.
And it felt a little Star Trek. When in Star Trek, characters sometimes say harsh things to one another, and then they will go out of their way to say or do harsh things to one another. They'll go out of their way sometimes to explain where they were coming out. Janeway does that all the time. And so does Geordie sometimes, and I appreciated that scene because it was two characters accepting each other where they were coming from. Michael accepted Tilly's whole thing, but then of course Tilly has to stick her mouth in it with some bad writing, and the scene got awkward, and awkward not necessarily because the character's awkward, but awkward because the writing was not very strong.
It's just a step too far.
I have this character flaw. I care too much about what other people think about me. But you don't care if, like, everybody hates you. No, that came out wrong.
I think this is a close I have one that I think is the yum yum of this episode. Like, this quote is the yum yum level of wowzer line, but for this episode.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is he shushing you?
You knew it.
Oh!
I
had that one down.
Is he shushing you?
Is he shushing you?
And of course, here, kitty kitty.
Yeah, kitty.
Everyone remembers that famous ominous line from Captain Lorca.
Yeah.
Here, kitty kitty. He must have watched Audition earlier that day. There is an interesting idea proposed in this episode that I don't remember being fulfilled in future. That Saru has a high metabolism rate because he's always snacking and he's always putting extreme amount of things in his drink like sugar, and I don't remember that ever being a thing that they do again majorly, but maybe.
Why is he eating blueberries?
Because he's hungry.
Did they just not give Doug Jones a chance to eat after he went through
they wanted to have that line about the food synthesizers that you love so much. So we get introduced to all, not even all of our characters, because we'll get to the Hudar later, but we get introduced to Stamets, who, Rachel, from my memory, if I'm not mistaken, he was your favorite character in Discovery when we first went through this.
Yes, he was.
How was he this time round? And we know how the journey goes. His character is going to have a physical change that will change his personality in a couple of episodes. So this is kind of a different version of that character.
Yeah. I know. I still liked him. I think this time Saru is definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I like Saru still.
Saru is still great, and
I like
that there is a point where I don't like what they do to Saru, but I still like Saru.
I like Doug Jones.
Doug Jones is great.
He's forced to have some terrible lines and ominous, like, fear. I have fear. We get it. You're fearing all the time, dude. It's your thing.
I got so excited and giggled to myself when he got to show off his ganglia at the end of the episode, even though it was a dumb reason that it was happening. Because, like, we know why it's going off, but you don't know that that's why it's going off the first time that you're watching it. You're just like, he's having a weird reaction and there's this thing popping out of his head. Like, that only makes any sense on a rewatch.
For myself with Stamets, I still enjoy, like, I don't care for what Stamets is like in season 2.
No.
I did enjoy him in this episode, and I do enjoy his setup, although the very hammering in with telling us who the characters are. Stamets is unfortunately one of the primary examples of that in this episode, because he gives us his whole backstory in a very forced, strangulated, exasperated monologue that, in the context of who he is in relation to Michael and what they're doing, it makes no one would speak like that. And it's just here for the audience to know this is what Stamets is about. And
it does. It's once again, it's a step too far, because it's like, okay, yes, he's a scientist. He's hard, objective, evaluating, and obviously distrustful of Michael. All of that stuff makes sense.
Yes.
All of those emotions and things wrapped up in that monologue make sense.
Yeah.
It's the timing, length, and pacing of that scene that make it feel uncomfortable.
And they're hammering in that he does not like doing the job he's doing, and he does not like Lorca.
He was drafted.
He was drafted and he doesn't like Lorca.
Mm-hmm.
They already established that well with him and his objections to Lorca, and him doing that in itself was telling us. And little lines that he has about Lorca were enough, but they just need to let you know instead of just letting it breathe, letting us figure out it, and maybe for letting future episodes thread the needle.
No. It must slam you in the face, Ryan. It'll slam you down. It'll pin you down.
It's a slap in the face. It's just kind of like, I'm slapping you with exposition.
In your face. He doesn't like him.
Yeah, he doesn't like the mean man. He doesn't like the mean...
He doesn't like him.
And the episode plot is fine. They have to go to the other ship that's all fucked up and deformed because of the experiment, and that's cool, but I kind of wish that was a whole episode.
Yeah, like the exploration of the ship and
the Klingons.
Like maybe like trying to befriend one of the Klingons because like they get attacked together and it's like they can't kill the Klingon.
Or taking one as a prisoner.
Or taking one as a prisoner. Like that is another example of how it's like it has good ideas, but they're just put on fast forward.
I would watch this episode where they're on the ship, there's a horror monster there, they're trying to figure out what went wrong, because I think it's immediately neutered because they know immediately what went wrong before they get there. They know exactly what happened. They just need to get tech and leave.
They're not even trying to confirm that that's what happened.
There's no mystery, there's no intrigue, and that could have been a great whole episode where they board this sister ship, things got fucked up, they need to try and figure it out with threats of a killer monster on the loose, threat of it happening again, and then here's something, maybe the Klingons could have intercepted the ship with them on it, and then they have to also hide from the Klingons as well, and they're on their own because they're a little shuttle bay and Discovery's not there.
Yeah, Discovery's out of transporter range.
That would have been a character-driven episode. It would have been a great character episode for letting us know their characters, but also how they work professionally, as well as a horror, thriller, mystery, suspense, action. It would have been an amazing episode, but instead it's just the last 20 minutes of, 15 to 20 minutes of this.
Yeah. How do you feel about the body horror aspect of that sequence? With like the
inside
removed bones inside outy.
It was fine. I didn't have a real opinion on it because
it felt weird.
If it was the focus of the episode, it would have had more of an impact. I haven't seen when Star Trek does body horror stuff, it's always interesting.
Oh, yeah, like it can do it really well.
The infuser will keep his oxygen level stable for the next hour or so, but after that, he'll die. His lungs have been removed.
It doesn't make any real difference that it's like they're like, oh, it happened near the edge of Klingon space. So it makes more sense that the Klingons are there, I guess.
Yeah.
But like when you're at war, it makes sense.
Edges.
Yeah, like the borders don't matter as much. But then I'm like, why are they so close to the border of Klingon space that they can send a shuttle out during an electrical storm to go out to then go get there? And it was like it was no time at all between like them where they were in Discovery to going to the Glen, because they didn't make a deal about using the spore drive to get close enough to then send the shuttle.
Well, they were close enough to have some kind of communique with one another with stamets, but I actually do. So all that I have an answer for, actually.
Oh.
No, I actually do. I wrote it down in my notes. So,
You have answers in this episode. I like it.
Yeah, I paid attention. So the answer is, Michael's the best. She's the best officer that's ever existed. And she's the first mutineer. And,
You really got me with that one.
Rachel.
You
so,
actually had an answer for one of them, and I was like, oh, great! He's got this. I just missed a line or something where they were like, let's go to Black Alert and get closer. But no. No.
I actually like I know I'm not a huge fan of the spore drive technology, and I want to leave our views on the spore jump thing until it actually is a thing that's in the show, and it's just introduced as an idea. But I like the revelation that Michael has, we think it's also going to be a weapon. Look what it's done. Look at this. And then it is actually revealed to be a form of transport. I think that's actually very fascinating. And I also think in this rewatch, knowing what it's later used for, I think it is a neat thing that Lorca has found to set up. I do question, though, how Lorca was going to ever get back to the Mbryo universe if this war didn't happen, because he only gets these circumstances because of the war. Now, there is a stroke of genius that he's managed to coerce all these things to happen in war times, but I often go, a plan would be great still if you could see how it would have worked if the situation was different, like how he could have still got to the Mbryo universe. But it's like we said in the previous episode, plans are meant to fail because the writers need them to. Yeah. This is a plan that's supposed to succeed because the writers needed to. I don't ever know how he was ever supposed to get back there without the war happening. How was he? And because his whole thing is getting back there, and he succeeds in doing that because of this happenstance, but he does not. But that is something
that's
that maybe.
That's a good question.
Hopefully the show will give us some answers.
Or at least, like, something to develop a bit more of our own theory on.
I actually do have an answer for this. Its context is for kings, and I guess when we're peasants, because we don't have the context.
Galactic lore is for losers?
Galactic lore is for losers. The final scene, I don't know. I think it's a bit too pretentious for its own boots, though. Like,
was the scene between him and Landry meant to be that sexual, or was that just me reading into it because of the lighting?
I think it's meant to be a sexual vibe there. I think he's a sexual being because we know later he has some sexy times with an admiral. So I think he's the kind of guy who's down to fuck.
Yeah.
He's
definitely that vibe. Like, he definitely brings.
He wants to fuck Michael.
Yeah.
Which I'm really noticing this time around. The first time around, I didn't really notice that, but this time around, I'm really noticing he has a real, because we know his relationship now to the Michael in the other universe. Anything else you want to talk about?
Do we want to discuss more about the Alice allegory, or just leave that for seeing how that gets picked up?
What is there to say?
It's just another way to make her the special one.
Oh, who was your mother? Amanda. And then the music is dramatic. Like, what is that? Why is that dramatic? We already know that her parents...
Yeah, but it's also reinforcing the idea that, like, this is not the world that you expect from Star Trek. This is Wonderland, which originally when we were watching it, we'd heard these theories and were kind of hoping that this was going to be the Mirrorverse universe.
Because why was it so mean and evil? There must be a reason.
Yeah. Like, wouldn't it be so cool if this was an entire show set in the Mirrorverse, and there's these are our good characters and who are bad in our universe.
I knew that I still knew it wasn't actually there. We still knew. Because details.
We still knew. Because also we said that
Terran Empire.
That was a better idea than the writers would have.
Well, I don't know. Do we have any final things we want to mention and nitpicks or stuff? There's nothing really much else I can think of. It was a bad episode in multiple ways, but with some intriguing conversations between characters, even if sometimes the conversations were interrupted by bad writing that just shoved in your face.
We would find truth. We were happy in our lab. Then your war started, and Starfleet co-opted our research. They split us up. They put us in charge of 2 different teams so we could work twice as fast. Not for truth, or to further Starfleet's mission statement of diplomacy and exploration, but for war.
Hudar, the section of the show in which we talk about a character we think, upon our initial watching of the TV series Star Trek Discovery,
was not an actual character.
It was not an actual character. Is not an actual character, or one that has been so underused that we want to know in a rewatch, is there more to the character that we missed? And he's not in this episode. I thought he was going to be in this episode because this is where we get introduced to the crew, but he wasn't. So this is the 3rd episode out of, 13 episodes in this season where the character Hugh isn't here. Hopefully he'll be in the next episode.
Yes, when I go to the next episode, one of the thumbnail images is of Hugh.
Oh, thank God.
So I am hopeful. I'm not gonna look at the cast list.
Yeah.
But
Hugh better be there.
We're hopeful that we'll get at least a blip on the Hudar.
On the Hudar, we'll get a little blip. We sure hope so. It's a facetious segment in which we want to be proven wrong, but also we know we're not going to be. But maybe we're wrong.
Maybe that's the whole show, though.
So, this episode, Context is for Kings. Out of Yum Yum, what would you give it? Would you give it yum as in bad or yum yum as in good?
Yum yum.
Yum yum.
I know that I said nothing nice about it.
You did say at the start that you liked it.
But I had fun with this one. I had fun. It's like I've said before, there are lots of bad episodes of Star Trek, but sometimes they're fun. And this one was fun to me. But maybe that's also because I knew that you were crawling inside your skin watching it.
I didn't hate this episode. I don't want to give that across. It's just like I would want to give it a yum yum just on how goofy the lines were.
Oh, so many.
But I have to give it a yum because of how forced and strangulated the writing is, how hollow some of the experience is on the rewatch of knowing where plot lines or characters and their ideas are dropped later.
All of that is true, but it's still a yum yum for me, which... Yeah.
Next week, next episode, what are we talking about? What is the episode of Star Trek Discovery next up?
Okay.
Next week on the Yum Yum track.
According to IMDb, this episode aired on October 8th, 2017, which means that it's
a while.
The next episode chronologically. So it's episode 4.
Season 1?
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
The butcher's knife cares not for the lamb's cry.
I already don't like it. That title needs to go jump.
Yeah.
It should have been called The Writers Stroke Themselves Off.
Yeah.
So, what's the plot?
So, the plot summary. IMDb doesn't list where this one comes from, so who knows? With tensions and stakes high as Starfleet continues in their efforts to end the war with the Klingons, Burnham begins to settle into her new position aboard the USS Discovery.
Yeah. I like that they're using her skills as a xenoanthropologist for engineering. It's nice.
Yeah.
You know, as xenoanthropologists do. You know.
They study biology and physics.
Oh, yeah, the same thing.
They really know how to code. That's what she knows how to do.
Well, I have an answer for that, Rachel. She's the best officer ever made. So, thank you very much to
Who are you, Saru?
Saru. Thank you very much to all you people still here listening. Hopefully we didn't get your green blood boiling up with disregard for this episode and or praise of the sloppiness of it at the same time. I feel like our previous 2 episodes we were a lot more level-headed and praising, but this one it was just like, oh boy, it was hot garbage. You can find us on the social medias, pretty much all of them, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We got a Reddit as well. All that stuff is in the description. If you look up YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast on any of those, you'll find us. We have our email, which is yumyumpod@gmail.com.
There you go.
You can email us with your questions, your views, your thoughts, death threats, your Klingon poetry, all of your Klingon poetry for love, all of that good stuff. Of course, we are still a new podcast. It's very much greatly appreciated if you guys subscribe to us, follow us, like our episodes, rate, review, share around, spread it to your friends like a couple of spores in a mycelial network. Rachel, a pleasure, as always, doing this podcast with you. I do this podcast because of the awe. The awe that is the miracle of life. For I am Ryan Sliwinski, a man who is a person who was born to do things that are narratively convenient. I'm very important, and I'm here just to
Can I hit
do
fast forward
things.
on you? Because I know the point that you're getting to. Just be like Discovery and just skip the 3 beats in between and just get to the end, which is...
I know you want this to end, but I will just say, with that speech, I was waiting for him to end it by being like, and I'm gay, Michael. That's what I was waiting for, just so that we could get it all out there.
No.